All right. All right. So, anyone want to review anything before we start going over Japanese grammar? Everyone still kind of remember their basic particles and kind of how to pick apart and diagram sentences.
I know how to pick apart sentences. I don't remember my particles.
All right. So we can probably go over those quick. Basically, if we pull up our old pre-updated Japanese grammar PowerPoints, it's actually the first one that we did. We have our basic particles here, our subject particle, ha, our object particle, ga, our and particle, to, our possessive particle, no, our verb object particle, wo, and question particle, ka. And actually, we're going to be talking a little bit more tonight about ha and ga specifically, and why calling them the subject and object particles are kind of not right, but it's the best way to introduce someone to Japanese. So, if you kind of remember like how all these work, you would just add like anoko to watashi would mean like him and me. Something like anata wa would mean you as the subject, and so that's basically how you use those particles. You just tack them onto something else. So tonight, going over grammar. If you're following along from the PowerPoint, make sure you're picking up the notes or reading the PowerPoint notes, because those are also very important to what we're learning. So the words that we'll be using tonight are genki, which means to feel well, as in like I feel well, not like well in, I don't know, the weird way that we use it in English. Gakusei means student. Watashi means I or me. Anata means you. And gohan means food. And we'll get more into these, or we'll see how these are used as we go on. So, last week we kind of went over some, like your standard proper verb conjugation, but this week I wanted to go over some unusual conjugation that's you'll see a lot more in casual conversation and day-to-day life. So normally we're taught that like to state something exists is you would say desu, but you can actually end a sentence in da to basically state existence or say something is. For example, genki da would mean I'm well, which follows an implied subject of yourself. But if there's already an implied subject of something else, which kind of depends on the context, it would mean that that is well. And the conjugation for this, or to negate existence, kind of parallel to da, is shinai.
Sorry.
Yeah. So like to say genki shinai would mean I'm unwell. And finally, to do like a past form of these, you would add a ta at the end. So datta and shinakata would be is or was and wasn't. So genki genki ta would mean I was well, or genki datta would mean I was well, and genki shinakata would mean I was not well. And like this kind of brings up the point that you don't necessarily need to have every word in a sentence like an English teacher would tell you to have, because Japanese, as long as you get the point across, a sentence is generally grammatically correct. For example, simply asking gohan would mean like, do you have food? Or if the context was like pointing to something and saying eat that, saying gohan as a question would kind of be asking like, is that food that you're asking me to eat? Then like, hi, gohan would confirm, yes, this is gohan, or this is food. And so, which actually kind of makes this meme on the side here. Technically, it's kind of correct in Japanese. You just roll up to a store and say, hello, food? Because you're asking for food. So saying hello and then asking food is asking for food. And yeah. Next up, I know we already covered it, but this is more of a slide on how to use the particle mo, which means also. Alright. The mo particle in this basically, like anatomo would mean you also, which it kind of depend. Again, these things are all very contextual, but it's trying to show you that like you can ask these things contextually, to say like, if you're talking about if you say genki da, which means I'm well, and then proceed to say anatomo, that's asking, are you also doing well? It can also kind of mean, you can also use it like watashi mo genki da, to say like, if someone's talking, like if someone else says watashi wo, if someone else says genki da, which would basically mean I'm well, you can say watashi mo to say I too am well. And the correct usage of this is you want to put it after a noun to say this noun is also something, and then you follow it up with what it is to describe it. Next up is the big slide, ha versus ga. This is probably one of the most difficult questions for a beginner getting into Japanese to learn, because we don't have a concept for this in English. But they both, ha and ga are both used to state a subject and to outline the subject of a sentence. Ha would be used where you're stating information that's new to the conversation, whereas ga would be something that's already in the conversation. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm really off tonight. For example, like watashi, the two sentences, watashi wa gakusei da means I am a student, as in presenting yourself. It's because you weren't talking about students, so you're kind of just out of the blue saying, yes, I'm a student. Whereas more watashi ga gakusei da would mean I am the student, meaning that you were already kind of talking about students in some context and stating that you are a student, and this is not new information to either the speaker or the listener. The best example I got from Reddit actually was somebody talking about the rain. If, say, you're sitting here with your best friends talking about train schedules on a clear, sunny day, if you start talking about the rain, and you would probably say amewa, which means rain. But you would use wa here because it's not raining, and you're just bringing up rain out of the blue. So you're introducing it as a new subject. Whereas if it started to rain on you guys, and suddenly this was the center of attention for both of you, you would address it as amega, because you're both looking at the rain, and this is the center of attention. And so you both know what rain you're talking about. You're not talking about the rain that happened yesterday, or some rain that's going to happen tomorrow. You both already understand the context. You both already understand the subject of the sentence, and so you don't need to introduce it as a new subject. It's already part of the conversation. Does that kind of make sense to everyone? Or
sort of
kind of sinking in? This one's really hard to wrap your head around, but I think rain is the best one to introduce the idea of wa versus ga with, because it can kind of just suddenly start raining, and that's the topic of the conversation. I would definitely look more into that as you guys are studying, and kind of be aware of when it's used in conversation relative to when these two are used in conversation relative to each other. And a lot of the stuff that I got tonight was from Take Him's Guide to Learning Japanese. He had kind of an overview of basic grammar and then the wa versus ga argument. So if you kind of want to go over some of this more, there's these links here. Any questions or comments on any of this? Okay, so tonight we're going to be watching episodes 3 and 4 of Lynn
One
Family's.
question.
Yeah.
Did you take attendance?
You did not.
Yeah, I will. Just a second. Tonight we'll be watching episodes 3 and 4 of Lin Family's History of Japan. So obviously I'm not going to be recording those, but they're linked here in the PowerPoint.